Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Alicia Hodges. I am the program director for the Concrete Masonry Checkoff. And thank you for joining us for the Checkoff's Region 1 Town Hall. We're so excited to have you here with us. Thank you for joining. We're looking forward to giving you an overview of what has been happening with the Checkoff. We are in a webinar style format, so your cameras are off, your microphones are muted. We do want you to stay engaged in the chat, so please go ahead and drop in the chat now where you're from, where you're joining us from. And if you have questions, please put those in the Q&A. That way we can get those questions answered for you either along the way, or we do have a Q&A session at the end. So again, put your questions in the Q&A. But to get started, go ahead and drop into the chat where you're from. And at this point, I am going to go ahead and turn it over to Dr. Aaron Fisher, our Region 1 RAC Chairman. Aaron, it's all yours.
Thank you, Alicia. First off, I want to thank everyone for taking the time out of their day to learn about what the Checkoff has been up to. And I want to highlight a few of the folks who've been very involved across the activities. I wanted to begin by highlighting our board members from the region. So this is not the entirety of the board, but these are just the board members from the region. I'll do it in reverse order because I got listed Rocky Fasano, he's out of Fasano in Philadelphia. Brendan Quinn, who helps serve on the EXCO and the chair of the Communications Committee with Ernest Mayer. Rich O'Connor is serving as the treasurer. He's out of Taylor Concrete up in upstate New York. And then Heidi Jandris, who has been on the board and is serving as the National Programs Committee with Jandris Block out of Boston. So we have a nice representation across the region. And then we also have a regional advisory committee. This consists of 15 folks. They're not all necessarily producers, so this represents a diverse range of perspectives. So there are Masons on this. There are trade associations, state associations, and other folks who are very invested in concrete masonry involved in the activity as well. So thank you to those folks who have served on the regional advisory committee, as well as my vice chair, Rich Fasino. I do want to make sure I highlight him. I want to begin by talking about our 5-year strategic plan. Why does the Checkoff, why does the program exist, and what has it been doing? And it really begins with the mission. We exist as an organization to help drive demand for locally made concrete masonry products. So really the raison d'etre of the organization is to help fund these big transformative projects that we hadn't really been able to fund as an industry to help combat the loss of market share, to help grow the market share, to help grow our industry, because a rising tide really does float all boats. And so we've come up with a few values, a few objectives, and we've really kind of drilled down to create a lot of nice and formal strategic plan here. So we've kind of broken the activities that we want to do into 6 different areas. Design assistance and marketing are the 2 largest areas in terms of dollar amounts. They're about a third each. And then the other 4 areas represent kind of the broad array of the perspective, educating design professionals, outreach to Masons and other folks in the masonry space, changing the codes and standards and helping to address those challenges that we've run into, and then promoting the codes and standards when they do really reflect things that help us, like resiliency and energy efficiency. And then finally, the university relations, so help growing that pipeline of designers and also growing the pipeline of folks as they understand what masonry is and what it can do, and they're comfortable with working with masonry. And so we're kind of approaching this. We have a 5-year kind of objective, we call it our hockey stick here. And we're at first, as we get started, there's a lot of different and disparate ideas as we kind of build around that strategic plan. We've got it started, so we're kind of in those blade years, and we're really looking ahead to really an inflection point where we go from kind of a lot of effort without a lot of results to now we're starting to see the effort match the results, and then ultimately going beyond that to the surging growth where the results really exceed the effort that we've put in, because we've really built a really strong foundation in terms of things we can stand on, pillars we can stand on in terms of marketing, in terms of examples, in terms of anything like that that we do as the Checkoff program. All right. So this is really the biggest thing is growing the market share of concrete masonry units. And the way we've kind of broken the market down is that we want to grow that by 20% in 5 years. So we want to go from about 5.3% right now to 6.4%. So this is not all construction. This is the part of construction that we see an opportunity that concrete masonry units could make an even bigger impact, are used in and can make a bigger impact in. So we've kind of broken out that. And then we've broken it down to a lot of KPIs. So we've kind of started to drill down. It's not just, hey, let's do these things. We're actually giving ourselves quantitative numbers so we can kind of give ourselves and look at our kind of batting average, so to speak, that we're doing what we say we're going to do so that we are being responsible stewards of the money that you are feeling as the people contributing to the program, as the people benefiting from the program, that you are seeing what you expect out of the program. So one of the biggest things is increasing that market share by 20%. We want AECs, the design community, to recognize the beauty of Block brand. Hopefully you have seen that in some of the things. We're consolidating our digital ecosystem and then ultimately looking for year-over-year growth in terms of leads, in terms of website traffic and things like that. I'm not going to read the other two, but I wanted to highlight that CMU demand side of it because, again, that is directly helping everyone's bottom line here. If more people are specifying, if more people are buying CMU, then we are really doing a great job in the Checkoff program. But we are looking to augment those Checkoff resources, so it's not just the dollars that you guys that producers are putting in that penny of block, whether it's the owner or the mason that's paying that or the producer. We want to grow those with other pots of money that do exist, whether from federal, state, or private sources. And then investor relations, the way we focus on investors, these are the producers that are paying into it. We want to make sure that they, as the people directly writing the checks to this program, feel that this program is of benefit to them. And then we've broken it down in terms of those program areas as well. So each of the program areas does have its own individual KPIs, knowledge, performance indicators. I think that's what a KPI stands for. Somebody can correct me later. We have goals around marketing, so that's reaching out to folks, getting them to be aware of that. That is focused around our beauty of block effort. So there's a very big national focus. There's also a regional focus that's building up into that as well. Our design assistants, this is the other big piece, and I'm going to let, eventually, as we get into this presentation, Chuck Rotondo is going to introduce himself and talk a little bit more about the Block Design Collective. But this is reaching out to the design community, overcoming some of the hurdles they see where they may not be as experienced or they might not be as comfortable with using masonry, but it is a great product. We want to help kind of hold their hands as they go through that process and then ultimately influence that design so that masonry becomes the material, concrete masonry becomes that material of choice. There are a couple of things that also feed into that from the educating design professional side of the house. This is a lot of coursework, continuing education level stuff. We have a university relations that's focusing again on those universities, educating the students on how to design with masonry and not specifically how to over design with masonry, because anytime you do an over design, there's obviously some wasted funds in there. So it's really easy to get that out. But again, showing some of those resources, those tools that exist, that have existed in the place, and then some that are being built. Outreach, so that's reaching students, that's helping develop the workforce. That's also reaching out to masons because, again, people are buying buildings, they are not buying masonry blocks. And so the masons and the folks who actually assemble those masonry products are very important. So making sure that they are represented well and they are engaged in this process so that ultimately the owners, the people who buying the buildings, get the products that we're talking to them about and showing them in pictures. And finally, codes and standards. That's always important because you have to design to a minimum standard. That is the code. And we want folks to do that and do that correctly. Not over design, not under design, but design to those codes and then understanding and then taking advantage of some of the codes because as some of these green and sustainability and resiliency codes have come into play, concrete masonry plays very well in those spaces. So 5-year goal example where obviously you don't want to accomplish all that in one step. It's how to eat an elephant. It's one bite at a time. And so we're kind of laying out those goals in terms of to grow to that 5-year goal right at that bottom. Things in terms of like engagement rate. Obviously, in the first year, we're not going to be engaging as many folks, but as we kind of build on that, as folks recognize the beauty of block, as they start to see it, and it starts to reinforce itself as a message, you'll see that we'll build very nicely through these first 5 years to that 2030 goal, where a lot of folks are going to really recognize and understand and appreciate the value that the Checkoff program is delivering. So again, the beauty of block and the Checkoff program are really set up to represent a unified industry voice. It would not be possible without any of these, a lot of these organizations that have existed before. So this is not an organization that's trying to go it alone. It's trying to help give people, though, a clear focus, particularly from like the AEC community. If they have a question about concrete masonry, the next thought in their mind should be, I should go to thebeautyofblock.com. And there's a lot of resources there that will help them. And so that's what we're kind of doing. And so we're trying to get us to that coherent, customer-centric kind of journey where they know what the next step is when they have a question about concrete masonry and concrete masonry products. So I'm going to turn this over to Rich O'Connor. Rich, you want to go?
Sure. Thank you, Aaron. So if you go to the first slide for me, please. So to give you an update where we stand, so for the total collections since we began doing assessments April 1st of 2023, so we now have 4 quarters of collections that have been turned into the Checkoff. Region 1 has contributed or collected $2,333,298 in assessments across all 4 quarters, or all 8 quarters, I'm sorry. And the total amount that we have actually collected from the entire country is about 21.7 million, a hair under. Just a reminder, so the way the assessments work, which you're all probably fairly familiar with, is we're collecting from the first day of the quarter, so April 1st through June 30th, and then those assessments are due to be turned in, sent into the Checkoff within 60 days. So there's going to be a lag period of when we actually have the assessment dollars within the Checkoff. So right now we've no quarter 1, quarter 2, since we just closed out a couple 10 days ago. We don't necessarily know what the total assessments are because actually the people just finished collecting them and they're not due to be turned in yet. So we will have that data probably closer to late, probably mid-September. And so we're usually on about a 3-month lag of knowing where the assessments and the sales were for any given quarter. Next slide, please. Just to give a little kind of breakdown of how assessments have gone, this is national numbers. Again, we didn't have a full year in 23 because we didn't start till April 1st. We collected a little more than $8.5 million. First full year we had in 2024, we collected about $10.8 million. And so far this year, as I said, we've collected about just over 2.3. With the inflation, the economy, the election, tariffs, all the uncertainty around the world, and in addition to some more severe weather in particularly the northeastern part of the country at different times to start the year, we were predicting a little bit with all those circumstances. Our original budget that was done for 24, late in 23, we did revise it down a little bit as a board. Originally, we were thinking 10. We went to about 7%. You can see that the slowdown we were expecting really didn't materialize till late in the year. We were down about 3% in the second quarter across the country for total dollars turned in. We're only down about 1% in the third quarter of last year. We were down more towards a little more than 7.5 or 7.6%, and then we did see about a 10.7% decrease for the first quarter of 2025 as compared to the first quarter of 2024. But if we take the overall of comparing the first 4 quarters, Q2 of 23 through the end of the first quarter 24, compared to the next 4, we're actually only down about 5.5%. So we still actually perform better than what we were forecasting. And again, we're hoping that with all the headwinds at the election and some of the political tariff news and all that stuff has kind of slowed. There's more certainty that the overall economy itself will get its footing and then we won't have as much of a slowdown going forward. Next slide, please. To give a breakdown for the budget, so based off that money, the total amount of money in that was available to start this year, you can see a breakdown that, as you can see, it's 3.6 million nationally. If you total up the 5 regions, it equates to roughly another 3.6 million because 50% goes back to the regions. The monies are allocated based on how the monies came in. So if one region contributed 30% of the funds, then 30% of the funds available for programs regionally go back to where that is. So it's proportion to where the money came, how much money came in from your regions, how much money comes back to your region. So you can see there. You could see Region 1, we equate to roughly 10% of the overall funds. You can see what we've spent. When we say funding through, these are the programs that we've allocated funds to. Not all of it has been spent, but we've had a variety of programs with our process, people submitting programs to start them basically, and then we have what funds are available that have not been allocated yet. Those funds don't go away, don't go anywhere. They're just held for the next round of funding that each region as well as the national will go through. So you can see that we've got quite a bit committed so far, but there is still some powder left for all the regions, so some more than others. Next slide, please. Just to show how assessments are coming in within our region. You can see that the biggest area collections for the first quarter of this year is Region C, which is the green, which I'd call the Mid-Atlantic, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, West Virginia, Maryland, DC, Delaware. They've consistently, if we're looking over time, have been roughly about 60% of the assessments of the funds sent in within our region. The second biggest would be Region 2, which would be New York, or District B, I'm sorry, which would be New York, which has been roughly about 24 or 25%. We collected about 53,000 this first quarter, and then New England, I'll call it, has been roughly about 14% or so of the collections. Next slide, please. And actually, that's my update of how collections have been going so far and funding.
Thanks, Rich.
So I guess I turn it back to you, Aaron.
All right. Thank you, Rich, for that
Thanks.
funding update. So as Rich presented, there's a lot of money has come in, but we are not obligating future money. So we're not obligating future activities based upon funds that have not yet been collected. And so to date, we have obligated roughly $13 million on the national and regional level into the 6 different program areas. As I kind of stated at the beginning, marketing and design assistance have been kind of the 2 biggest projects, program areas to date. I think it's a function of just what the focus. So the intention is not to have them all equally weighted. The intention is to fund things that we think are going to have those biggest impact. And that is why marketing and design assistance have together accounted for slightly more than half of the dollars, but not necessarily more of the programs. And so we funded the other 4 program areas you can see right there in terms of the funding amounts that they have been allocated. And so we can look at the regional level. Again, a lot of what we're doing here does indeed mirror what's going on at the national level. We have funded a fairly large amount of marketing as well as design assistance. Of the 13 programs we funded, marketing and design assistance have definitely been the largest share of the funding that we've funded to date. There is still a chunk of funding that has not been allocated. We first, as kind of an understand, and I'm going to jump into the slides to the programs we've actually funded in a moment, but just talking about the funding process, we solicit applications, and we will be soliciting applications for funding later this summer. The members of the RAC look at those programs, they evaluate them, they rank them. Those that rank highly, we then kind of sequence them, and then we fund based upon the dollars that we have available. To date, we haven't seen enough proposals that we think are worthy enough to get funding And so that is why we still have about $150,000 that have not been allocated to date. And so I would encourage you, if you have a project or a program, we are still looking for stuff, and to get that, to think about that and then get that submitted later this summer. But in terms of looking to what we've actually funded, here's our current programs. Some of these have concluded. I believe almost all of these have concluded. We have funded a cost study to kind of look at and compare, because masonry is certainly always thought of as a more expensive material, to help push back on that narrative. We've engaged with the universities, particularly at Penn State, to help get them licenses to design software, so that as the students go through their tertiary and undergraduate curriculum, they are getting the design experience to work with structural masonry. So as they go out into the real world, they're able to use those design tools. They know where to turn for that. That project has concluded. I think we're just waiting on the final report because of welcome to the end of the school year. There was a project that looked at lift assist equipment. So this is it's a slightly less fancy suit to help lessen the load, the weight of masonry block on the masons, to hopefully help them increase productivity. That project was completed and that report is out. I'm happy to send that along. That's one of the ones I did. We have funded students to travel to TMS. That is a project that is still ongoing, so I'll have a little bit more on that one. We also had a masonry competition, a skills competition, the Mid-Atlantic Masonry Competition, which was a really nice project. I'll talk about a few of these in more detail in a moment. Next slide. We are funding the national block, the regional block design collective. So this is the regional one technical director. This is Chuck Rotondo. I will give him a chance to talk and introduce himself in a moment. We are funding marketing. So we are targeting some local events, and I will let those folks talk a little bit more about that. We've also funded a masonry masterclass. And so all of these are going to have their own, they're going to have a little bit more talking to. We funded a masonry education day at the City University of New York. We funded an education day more for practicing professionals in upstate New York. And we've also funded work at the Spitzer School of Architecture. I've got Christian, who will talk a little bit later about his program. Next slide. These are the programs that we funded again this year. You'll notice there's a couple of projects that did carry over from previous years: the travel scholarships, the masterclass, the Masonry Education Day, and the Skills Challenge. We found those programs pretty valuable, so we are continuing to fund them. I will note that the Checkoff does have a process in terms of funding things. It's okay to fund things for about 3 years contiguously, but then it wants those programs to kind of graduate and move to other funding sources. So the intention is not to perpetually fund these activities. So if you're thinking about them and you're like, this will kind of chew into the budget every year, that is not the intention. It's just to kind of get these promoted and started, and then turn to other funding sources to keep them going. And that last program there, that is expanding and enriching. So that's reaching out to university professors to help get them give them a much more confidence in incorporating masonry education into their curriculum. Jenny Tanner is working with them. So if you are aware of any professors that are kind of masonry curious, so to speak, she is more than happy to help get them set up with that, get a little bit of curriculum into them, so that the students then now have that level of comfort that they should in terms of designing and using masonry. Next slide. And I'm a national programs update. So obviously we're going to look a little bit deeper into some of this, but I'm going to turn this over to, no, we have one more slide before I turn it over. So we did give a national town hall. So this is the regional town hall. So this is a little bit more focused on what we're doing in the region here in the Northeast. We did give a national update. There's a lot more detail on some of these programs. So if you're hearing something and you want to hear a little bit more, I would encourage you to check out and scan this QR code. We will send around the presentation, but that's the QR code for those folks that are interested to hear a little bit more on the national program, because this is going to be a little bit more slimmed up on that topic. All right, I think everybody's taking the QR code. So I'm going to turn it over to Chuck. Chuck, are you there?
I'm here.
All
Thanks,
right.
Aaron. So before I dive in, I know we have a pretty big group. So for the benefit of those who may not be familiar with the Block Design Collective just yet, I just quickly wanted to talk about what we are and who we are. And the easiest way to remember what we are is to remember the phrase Virtual Design Center. And you can access that by visiting beautyofblock.com. And if you click in the top right-hand corner, there's a button that simply says Project Support. And if you click on that, that will take you to the Block Design Collective, and you'll be able to see everything that we're building and doing there. In addition to that, we are a team of people. So right now, that team consists of Riley Dvorak. He's our national design director. And then there are 3 regional technical directors. So obviously I'm in Region 1, and then we have Tino Colliel in Region 3 and Lauren Kennedy in Region 4. And we are actively recruiting for Regions 2 and 5 right now. 2 is in the Southeast and 5 is out West. So if anybody has anyone that comes to mind that they think could be a good candidate for either of those regions, you can certainly send me their information and their name, and I will forward that on to Riley. But Riley is really driving the effort to recruit for those regions. So you could also contact Riley directly. So to dive in, and I'll keep this moving along as quickly as I can, Aaron. In September, we're going to be launching it will be the official soft launch of the BDC. What you're seeing here are some of our goals. As you read these, I will tell you that everything that we do within the BDC focuses on 3 key areas, and those are promoting the use of block in design and construction, educating architects, engineers, contractors, and owners on the benefits of using concrete masonry. And the overarching goal for those 2 areas is to increase market share. So through promotion and education, that is the main goal, is to increase market share, as Aaron's been highlighting. Next slide, please. So at the beginning of 2025, we created a list of key performance indicators. It is key performance indicators, Aaron, not knowledge performance indicators, that we are tracking or beginning to track. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on these today because we are still only about 6 months into measuring, and we did expect these numbers to be low and slow as we get our feet under us in these areas. Here's what I can tell you, and please excuse the pun, but in Region 1, we are laying a strong foundation right now to increase these numbers substantially for the remainder of the year and into 2026. Just to give you some quick examples, an education event would be an event where I will directly be educating people. So if you think lunch and learn, that would qualify as an education event. AEC interactions are a lighter touch, if you will. So if we are speaking at an event for, say, an industry association, and the content that we are delivering is not accredited and doesn't provide any kind of continuing education, so a higher level view of what we're doing at the Block Design Collective, and say there's 50 people in the room that are all A's, E's, and or C's, that would qualify as 50 interactions. And then we have project assistance and project influence. So project assistance is, I'll call them one-off requests for assistance. So it would be something that is like if an architect or an engineer needed some help with a detail on a project, and these are things that we would turn around very quickly. They can submit those through the Block Design Collective website, again, by just clicking that project support button. And there's a web inquiry form that they can fill out. A project influence is getting into the weeds a little more, and I'm going to talk about that in a second, but those are things that take a little longer to turn around, and it's where we are much like the name implies, influencing the decision of a design team to use masonry as a system for a building or a project. So you can go to the next slide, please. So the way that we are doing this in Region 1, the way we are trying to move the needle is by these 3 focus areas that I am focused on. And with the help of our regional advisory committee members, these are the areas, again, that I'm focusing on to move the needle. And I am going to dive into these a little bit quickly. Delegated design first. If it's something that you're not familiar with, it is a It is a design methodology that essentially shifts part of the design of a project down to the subcontractor level and gives the subcontractor the ability and really responsibility to hire what's called a delegate engineer to design a portion of the project. And then that design then gets resubmitted through the GC back to the engineer of record, and the engineer of record ultimately still signs and seals the drawings. Right now, we are finalizing a guide that outlines what each stakeholder's responsibilities are. We hope to have a final review of that done at our next meeting, which is going to be on July 18th. And then I am hoping that we are going to be able to publish that guide in August. And then the next step after that would be to begin educating mason contractors, GCs, architects, and engineers on what delegated design is. I just finished, with the help of our marketing team, writing an article that will be published in Philadelphia Business Journal, hopefully within the next couple weeks. And so that will, if you're not following Beauty of Block on LinkedIn or the Checkoff on LinkedIn, I encourage you to do that, and that will allow you to see that article when it comes out. Or of course, you could follow Philadelphia Business Journal. And what you can be doing to help us with delegated design right now is simply ask the question, are you familiar with delegated design? And I'll tell you, regardless of what the answer is, you can follow up with, I'd like to put you in touch with the Block Design Collective and the Checkoff, and just get their name and their contact info, and you can send that on to me, because we want to hear from people that are familiar with it. And obviously, we need to educate people that are not familiar with it. The next area is project support. And right now, we are in the midst of running a pilot program for project proposals. This is a program that we launched on June 30th. Project proposals are currently being put together in Region 3. So right now, we are essentially mimicking what they're doing in that region. And we're doing it, as I said, in the form of a pilot program. So what the pilot program entails is anyone, meaning a producer, an architect, engineer, owner, or mason, can submit a project that could or should have masonry or more masonry if there's already masonry on the job. And then the project gets reviewed by the BDC to determine if it's something that we can prepare a proposal for. So I want to be clear, we are looking for projects that are very early on in the design phase. And to be very specific, we would love to see projects that are either in the conceptual phase or in the schematic phase. So once we determine if it's something that we can put a proposal together for, we go ahead and do that. And then we set a meeting with the design team to present the proposal to them. The pilot, this program is in its infancy right now. So we are essentially funding it with the budget for my program. And you can see that program number in the top right-hand corner here. And we're trying to determine whether or not this should be its own program. So what we need from you guys right now are the opportunities to review. We launched this, as I said, on the 30th. All the producers should have received an email outlining instructions for how to submit a project. And as of this morning, we only have one. And that was submitted by Brian Trimble from the IMI. And it's a project that is in the bidding phase. So not the ideal stage for us, but we're going to review it regardless and see if there's any way that we can maybe connect with that team. I will tell you the client is Amazon, so I'm not too optimistic that we're going to be able to get in front of the client, but we are going to look at it. The pilot program, the submittals are due no later than July 20th. Whether or not that date will be moved out, I'm unsure right now, but when we set it, that was the date that we chose. And then the final area is key account targets. It's pretty straightforward. I've identified 10 companies that we want to build very deep relationships with the hope that they will breed opportunities for us. Right now, it's 4 construction firms, 3 engineers, 2 architects, and 1 Department of Education, and that is in Rhode Island. The goal is simple, like I said, form deep relationships. I'm happy to review the list of those companies with anyone. 4 of those companies have been recently added. In terms of prerequisites, I look for companies that have very large footprints. So I not only want to see multiple offices within the region, but I would prefer that they have a national footprint. And the reason for that is so that we can leverage the relationships that we build within the region, and I can make introductions to my counterparts in the other regions, and we build a national awareness of who we are. And to give you an example, if we begin with a warm introduction, just yesterday I was talking to one of the reps from Lampus, and he has a couple connections at Stantec, and he sent me their names and contact information. And if you know anything about Stantec, you know that they go beyond a national footprint. They're a global firm. And so we're going to start with warm intros and build out from there. You can go ahead and go to the next slide. So these are just some mini success stories that I can share in the area of the key accounts. Colliers is one, and earlier this month we had an in-person presentation in Region 3 that Phil Adent did, and Tino joined that in person as well. I joined it virtually. There were about a dozen people there, and the presentation was on how to design efficiently with masonry. Skanska is another one of the companies. They have a client in New Jersey that approached them about a design build opportunity for an outbuilding at a site that they're working at. And I was able to connect them with Jamie Davis in New York, and her firm put together some ideas for that building to be masonry. It has been submitted to their client, and we're just waiting on feedback. But what I'm being told is that it was well received. So we're still awaiting feedback on whether or not that's going to go masonry. And then I have a meeting tomorrow with Pannoni, thanks to Jan Boyer. Jan had a contact there in New Jersey that I'm going to be meeting with tomorrow. Gilbane just had somebody promoted to run their New Jersey office. It happens to be somebody that I know. And we've had multiple conversations with Rhode Island Department of Education. And so we are beginning to build these relationships with these key accounts. I will tell you, it's an approach that does take time, but I have seen it work, and we're gonna continue doing this. So again, if somebody wants the list of those companies, all you have to do is reach out to me, and I'm happy to get them to you. And if you have any contacts, it's a great way to begin spreading the word about who the Block Design Collective is. The project pilot program is more of a shotgun approach, and the key account approach is much more targeted, if you will. So that's a really high level view of what the Block Design Collective is doing in Region 1. Please reach out to me. Again, that deadline for submitting projects for the pilot program is the 20th, and please visit us through beautyofblock.com by clicking on project support. Thanks, Aaron.
All right, thanks, Chuck. John Pofrel here, as part of the Clutch team. So I think we're all familiar with the Beauty of Block, right? At its core, it's a campaign that celebrates kind of the overlooked and underutilized benefits of Block. So we know that there's a heck of a lot more to CMU than meets the eye, and that's a beautiful thing. So right here, in terms of the KPIs, thinking back to the beginning of our first full year in market, right? What would success look like? And given that it's a B2B audience, we felt like if we accomplished the numbers here on the left, we'd be in great shape. And we've been really impressed with the traction thus far. And obviously, we need to sort of recalibrate and set some new stretch goals, but off to a really good start. This is what you want to see, obviously. From a national level, right, we have this air cover from the national campaign, but what's really cool to see is each region is like really sinking their teeth in and doing something a little different, adding their own spin and really making Beauty of Block their own. So what does that look like for Region 1? As Aaron mentioned earlier, we kind of have this 1-2 punch going with placed news articles. There's been about a dozen articles either placed already or that are in the works, like Chuck mentioned. And then we're doing some geo fencing, which there are 8 events that we've identified that we want to learn a little bit more about the attendees of these things, and we're able to do some cool targeting digitally to get them to our website. And once they're there, we can learn a lot about them. And then just my last slide here. This is just to say that Rack 1 is punching well above its weight class, right? There's national plus the 5 regions, and Rack 1 is accounted for over a third of the traffic to beautyblock.com so far in 2025. So you can see YIMBY, Yes in My Backyard, a ton of users from that. And then New York Build, which is an event back in March, a lot of traffic there. So you can like, we've tapped into something cool. And we're going to be talking here in the next week or two about what this looks like going forward. What do we carry forward from this year? And where do we pivot to just stay really tight? So nice work, you all.
All right, thank you, John. Hi, everybody. I'm Alicia Hodges, as I mentioned earlier, and I'm going to speak about a couple of the national programs. As we mentioned earlier, we did a full national program update on a national town hall. And so we're not going to go too deeply into the national programs, but do want you to know that there is work being done out there nationally with national dollars that is impacting Region 1. And so from a codes and standards perspective, we do have Ben Nantasai and Nick Lang from CMHA leading a national codes effort. And there are some key KPIs on your screen, just so you know, they're focused in different areas, including structural, fire safety, energy, material science, and environmental technology areas. And they're making some good progress. So you can see the year 1 KPIs. The goal is 20% increase for the first year in voting and forum participation. And so they're well on their way there. They have their goal is a 275% increase in subject matter experts. Currently at 71% for that. The goal is to impact 2 national codes, 4 regional codes, and then have 1,300 hours in education. And so we are looking forward to an update from them. As we know, they are out there making an impact on a national level. Next slide, please. And then our Block Learning Hub, I think I'll go ahead and cover this one. And so we have established our Block Learning Hub, which is the Checkoff's learning management system. We currently have, if you want to go ahead and hit the next slide for me, Megan, that'd be great. We currently have several courses in our Block Learning Hub that you can direct the AEC community to. They can go take those courses for free. They're all AIA accredited, and they can earn AIA and PDH credits online. So we would certainly want you to share our Block Learning Hub out with the AEC community to take those new courses. Our KPI goal is to have 1 learning channel this year. So we have done that. We have our AEC learning channel out there. 2 courses established. We currently have 8 already. So we have surpassed that KPI. Our goal was 200 LMS accounts this year. We're at 246, and then 1,600 contact hours on a goal of 2,000. So definitely working ahead on the Block Learning Hub, but certainly want you all to use that as a resource for the AEC community. Next slide. And then concrete masonry outreach. So Aaron spoke a little bit about concrete masonry outreach at the top. This is really, this focus area is really about educating youth and just educating them about joining the masonry industry, the benefits of working in the masonry industry. And so you can see we have established some goals there, and we have, and I see Robert Melgard is on the webinar. He is our national lead for this, our national program. And they're out there working to connect with students, attract instructors into the masonry industry, update curriculum for high schools. And so they're out there really working to make an impact on this. So for the year so far, reached 4,500 students on a goal of 7,700 students this year. a goal of one state using NCCER curriculum, and we have 10 already. 8 events, and we've achieved 8 already. And then really the goal of this program, Aaron talked about, really after 3 years, we want a program to be working to be self-funded. And the national program is definitely dedicated to funding itself. They're pretty close on a couple different grants that they've applied for. And so that's certainly something that they're working to do, to be their own standalone program, so we can invest those checkoff dollars into a different area. All right, next slide. So I think we're going to go into regional programs now. So I'll pass it over to Aaron.
Thank you, Alicia. And I will highlight Chuck, John, and Alicia. If you do have questions about, folks should be encouraged to reach out to those folks if they have questions. And we also haven't highlighted Kim Spahn is our CEO. She is of the Checkoff program. She is also on the call. So if you do have questions, everybody has been very personable and is more than happy to kind of help answer your questions or direct you to the right people. I'm going to highlight a few of the projects. So I'll talk through a couple of them, and then I'll have the actual the recipients of the fundings also talk about a few of their own. This one is the Mid-Atlantic Masonry Skills Challenge. So this was a skills competition to highlight first, second, and third year kind of level 1, 2, and 3 Masons in terms of their skills, and to highlight some of that. It was a great competition. We followed up with a bunch of the participants. One of them even noted that one of the winners noted that the confidence they got from winning actually helped parlay them so they could ultimately get promoted in their career, which is exactly the kind of stuff we want folks to understand. If you're a good and competent worker, and we want you to have that confidence that you can then get that, seek out promotions and really recognize that achievement. So he said this is what gave him that confidence. So really big thing for us. Next slide. This is the structural masonry design curriculum. So this is getting software licenses into Penn State's architectural engineering program. So this is to get students using the software, get them comfortable with it. So ultimately, when they step out of the university setting and into the professional setting, they are comfortable with using the software, designing with the software. And so kind of that uncertainty, that scariness that sometimes comes with something unfamiliar has evaporated. We're still waiting on the final report, but that should be coming pretty quickly. For the next one, I'm going to turn it over to David Biggs, who's going to talk about the Masonry Masterclass.
Thanks, Aaron. You can read the slide, but there are key points that I really want to make about this. This is a virtual class for architects and engineers who are owners and senior managers and who direct designs within their offices. It's not an entry-level course. We found that we've been educating engineers who might not have learned masonry in university, but we weren't always reaching the senior managers. In reality, we need to address both groups. So by addressing the senior leaders, we want to discuss ways to improve their designs, make their staff more efficient, and avoid construction problems that result from their designs. So a key element of the course is going to be interaction with masons. This program was born out of New York State, and this is the first time that it's being offered throughout Region 1. One previous attendee represented a firm that had a very strong masonry advocate within the company, but gradually that firm started to slip away from masonry due to concerns over the perceived quality of construction. The course interaction with the masons was really beneficial and led them to a reawakening of interest in returning to the masonry design. What we also found a benefit was many of those firms who completed this course have requested learning units for their staff. So it's actually the top pushing down the knowledge rather than us trying to teach from the bottom up. Other attendees have reevaluated their standard practices and saw where they were over designing by not using current standards, where their specs and details were creating confusion for the masons and unnecessarily adding costs. And we think we're making some headroads on that. The 2025 edition, as I said, is going to be available to all of Region 1. It tentatively starts on November 3rd and goes to December 8th. It's 2 hours once a week. For this to be a regional success, though, we need your assistance. Notices will be sent out to producers in August, soliciting architects and engineers. We're looking for responses back by the end of September, and we're looking for up to 100. So that's our issue here, and I'll pass it on to Brett Sherman for the next one.
Yeah, thanks, David. So Masonry Education Day is another upstate New York program. And it started probably about 5 years ago, and it was in response to what we were hearing from architects and engineers as to the feeling of the quality of work, masonry work, that they were seeing on their jobs. So we felt that it was necessary to start a program to teach code-based installation methods to, masons in the upstate New York area. And we did that by having a one-day program with seminars, 4 seminars. Each seminar dealt with a different aspect of masonry installation. After a couple of years, some of the architects and engineers that were presenting at Education Day said that they felt it would be a good idea to offer this program to designers. So we took that challenge on and went from just a basic installation seminar to installation and design seminar. And since that time, the program has grown to the point where this year we needed some help from Checkoff, and gratefully got funding from them, and we were able to increase the participation. This year we had just over 70 participants. They included masons, apprentices, college students from SUNY Alfred, plus designers and business owners of masonry companies. If you can go to the next slide, please. So as I said, we started with around 55 people initially, and last year was over 70. I think good feedback from the program. One of the things I always like to hear that I hear from masons and the designers is, I didn't know that, right? So we would do a presentation on an aspect of masonry installation and design, and we were done. A designer would say, hey, I didn't know that, I didn't realize that. We need to start including that in our designs. And we'd get the same response from masons saying that they didn't understand that what we were showing them was part of the installation process, and that they would start to do that and go back out into the field and pass that information on to the other masons. One thing in the masonry industry is a lot of the training is passed down, right? So masons that came out of their apprenticeship maybe 15, 20 years ago aren't necessarily up to code standards, the things that have changed. So by providing this training, we're getting the new information out, the new techniques and the new code requirements to the people that attend. So this year, this program also is going to be expanded to all of RAC 1. And just like David said, we'll need help from everyone in the RAC to get the message out that we'll have this program. It generally occurs the end of January. We're going to be setting the date tomorrow, and we'll have the program offerings coming soon. So hopefully by October, we'll have that information available and we can start promoting Education Day. Thank you.
My name is Christian Volkmann. I'm a professor at the City College of New York, Spitzer School of Architecture, and I'm the coordinator at our school for the technology curriculum. For those of you who don't know, City College, we are the only public program for architecture in the entire greater New York area. My project was not about educating design pros, but educating the next generation of design pros. So it's the university relations. I would like to thank Beauty of Block and the Checkoff for their generous support for our design build curriculum, concrete masonry green wall. So what we did is we developed curriculum for design build in concrete masonry. We all know that when students draw concrete masonry, it looks different than when they build it, and when they are confronted with the tangible aspect of collaborating with masons. It's a semester program, 15 weeks. Of the 15 weeks, students designed individually for the first 7 weeks. Then we narrowed it down to 4 projects. At the end of the semester, we narrowed it down to the last 2. And then those last 2 were built together with union masons on site, on campus, as you can see in the photographs on the right side. It's an experiential space. It's actually very popular with our students. We can use it as an outdoor classroom also. It articulates the beauty of block, maybe, Aaron, a little bit in an over-designed way, but that was the purpose here, that we try to tickle out a little bit of something that is elegant and beautiful in terms of concrete masonry design. Next, please. For the KPIs, I didn't really like the matrix that was put forward, but we have ongoing discussions to do this again. We have existing 3 masonry lectures, existing concrete lectures. We have 15 additional students being taught, but it's a problem in terms of course development, because any accredited architecture program would have to file with the state of New York for change of the curriculum. If this is a permanent course, there are some loopholes in it. But I think a better matrix is what Alicia presented before in the coach section, that we would count education hours. And in terms of education hours, we added probably 4,000 to 5,000 hours of concrete masonry education to our students. I also know of 3 graduating students who joined construction management sector because of the experience that we had. And I think in general for the pedagogy, it is important to connect the word of thinking with the word of making in order to find synergies in between it. We have a documentary, about 30 minutes, 4 parts, that we will share with Clutch and with the Checkoff program, that can explain much better than in my 2 minutes how this worked. About 1,500 people saw the finished product at commencement. I will show this in the next slide. And we were also part of the exhibition at Concrete Masonry Day by Glenwood Masonry Supply in March. So here you'll see, like from left to right, the upper row is like we had to build our own design build pad, were supported by SIM Concrete, by certain manufacturers, by Glenwood, of course. I want to thank Jeff Hansen, who is part of the panel here, for his support also. That was very, very crucial for this project. Then you see slide picture 3 on that slide is the exhibit at the Concrete Masonry Day. Then 4 and 5 are pictures of the 2 days of design build session with the masons, where masons instructed students how to lay brick. Students mixed their own mortar, were really haptically involved in it. Then in the second row, second and third photograph, you'll see the graduation attended by about 5,000 people, students, parents, relatives. And the project is right there. So students brought their parents, their relatives into that project and presented it to them. And it became really a beautiful space. And we look forward to working with you again the next year. Thank you, Alicia. Thank you, Aaron. Thank you, Chuck. It was a great experience.
Thank you, Christian. Just one last plug for the TMS Travel Scholarship. This is a travel reimbursement program for students and professors to attend the Masonry Society meetings to get them engaged in the future of masonry. Encourage them to scan that QR code, and they can apply for travel sponsorships by July 15th. So that deadline is coming up because the TMS meeting itself is coming up. Next slide. Certainly, we're really excited about everything that has been going on today, to this point, excuse me, not just today, that we've been able to talk about. There's a lot of ways to get engaged with these things. I want to highlight that because it is not just a passive program where you kind of sit back. So if you do see, but there are a lot of people that can help you on that journey if you want to get help encourage and grow the masonry world. concrete masonry. So the regional design assistant. So if you do have anything, if you want to get a project up to that, or you have something that you think Chuck might be able to help with, he is eminently reachable. He's eminently personable. Please reach out to Chuck. The three of the projects, the skills competition, the education day, and the masterclass, as I mentioned earlier, are being continued for another iteration. So if you are interested in those activities, please reach out to those folks to get engaged in that. Those events are coming up. Their registration pages may not be open yet, but if you reach out to them, they will make sure that when those do open, that you are on them. I would encourage you, if you have not yet been to the Beauty of Block, to go there. And then when you do see the Beauty of Block, know in the back of your mind that that is the Checkoff dollars at work promoting those Beauty of Blocks. When you see those articles, you see some of those things, that's a great place. If you do see something for design assistants or things like that, that is a great place to send design professionals to A, learn about masonry, and B, to get more information or to get their project over to Chuck for design support at the Block Design Collective. And as I did mention, the proposal deadline is coming up for our next round of funding. We do have a fair bit of money available. So that deadline is August 20th. So if you do have a proposal, please put it up there. I will also note, if you do want to be involved, our RAC meetings are open. Those dates will come up later, so I'll let Rich do that. And then the RAC, the membership in the RAC, so you're always welcome to attend that, but the RAC membership is on a 2-year cycle, so half of the members will have terms that expire at the end of the year. So if this is something you want to be more involved in, we do always encourage that, because it is not just programs, it is the people that make those programs successful. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about joining the effort. Actually, no, I'm going to kick it over to Rich Vicino, my vice chair, to kind of close it out in terms of other ways to get involved in this and some of the things that are coming up in the near future. Rich?
Thanks, Aaron. Great job. Kudos to you for emceeing it and doing all the heavy lifting, and the rest of the team. I just get to come on and wrap it up. So we're doing okay. It's two past 2. I know you guys have just been listening for an hour and you're wondering, how can I support this effort? There's a quick list here, and the most important thing to get out of this is we really need contacts and content. Our program success really, really depend on this. If you are not part of the RAC, you certainly can be, and our industry extends beyond the RAC. So we really do need some help sharing and getting AEC databases to our program leads. Now that you've met Alicia and Chuck, please pass them along. If we get anything out of this day, that is extremely important and will help drive the success of our programs going forward. Next slide, please. If this regional town hall didn't do it for you, or you certainly want more of it, there's more to come for other regions. I find these very interesting to see what is going on outside of our Region 1. We do collaborate monthly with these other regions with co-chairs and chair calls and Alicia. Every region is different. Every region has different tactics and focuses. And here's a list here of the upcoming dates. And our Checkoff loves QR codes, so you'll see them throughout. Please feel free to scan that and provide more information. Next slide, please. Aaron made mention to it earlier that we do have some upcoming regional meetings. Our next meeting is 10/2 in Albany, New York. That is where we will be meeting to review programs, recommend funding to the board. And that's where a lot of the information sharing and collaboration goes within our region. We do also have, like Aaron mentioned, it's an open meeting, so everyone and anyone is welcome to attend, and we love interaction at these meetings. Next one. Like I mentioned, our RAC's recommendations go up to the board, so nothing more important than being on the board. And as you can see here, we have 3 open board seats. Kim and her team are exceptional. We have the ability to make change. This board seats represent a diverse network of producers, large producers, small family-run producers, and we really could use your help. So if you want to be in on that growing curve that we saw earlier about 50 minutes ago with that hockey stick, the curve's going up, and it's a great time to be part of the board. Next slide, please. More funding for more ideas. So you heard a lot of the great ideas that are already happening within our region Our current funding, we have spent a significant amount of it towards marketing and the design collaborative, which we have made focused for our priorities. But there's still $150,000 of real money to be spent and can be spent. If not, we will table it for other initiatives that make more sense down the road. But right now, there is a deadline in place. The next program deadline is August 20th, which is coming up fast. 4th of July came and went. So now we're going to be looking at Labor Day pretty quick. So there is a timeline here set above right now. Thank you. And the program submission process has gotten easier. It's online. It's through Submittable. It's not an offline program that we started a year or two ago. But it does take time, right? So it takes 6 to 8 months from submission to actual action. So please, you can make your idea more than idea. You can make it something that's tangible, and we could really use it now. So next slide, please. Check out the producer portal. I think when I get in touch with other people regarding the rack and Checkoff and other producers, they're always asking information. They're always asking, what is it? How is it? Where can I learn more? And this is a very valuable resource as a producer to go on. And I think Clutch and the Checkoff team has done a great job expanding this portal with more knowledge. So for those producers on this call that are not directly connected in being in the rack or on the rack meetings, we want you to be. But this is a great spot where you can go on and find some information for yourself. Or if you need more help, please reach out to Aaron and I, and we can gladly support you. Well, I'll take credit for wrapping up the meeting, Aaron, but you certainly did all the heavy lifting. So if there's any questions in the chat, I'm not too sure if there was or there wasn't.
Kim, I think you were going to jump in.
Hey, Kim.
Awesome. Yeah, I was just going to wrap it up. And I think all the questions that were asked were answered during the webinar. But certainly if you guys think of something after we close out, feel free to reach out to any of us that have led the discussion today. And I wanted to thank you, Aaron and Rich, for your leadership. I think Rec 1 is really heading in a good direction and getting things off the ground. And for all of you guys that did present as leads, those are the folks that are really making it happen. So thank you too for partnering with the Checkoff and helping us gain back market share. So with that, I will close this out and look forward to meeting some of you guys in the near future.